All right, ladies and gentlemen, do not adjust that dial. Yes, it is yours truly, James Lantine, the one, the only, joined with
John Marcus from the Chamber.
Well, you said the Chamber.
Yeah.
I didn't say the House of Magic.
Oh, wow.
I just gave my name.
Well, they still don't quite know me yet.
Yeah.
So. Everybody knows you.
Anyways, this is Listen Up, Santa Paula. Welcome to our show. We're gonna try to be hip today. We're gonna try a new little hip
that's a stretch
style of I know. But today we have a special guest, and I'm really excited about this because he has two very diverse kind of careers. I mean, like literally totally opposite of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So it should be a fun little interview. But we will get with him right after this.
Rough Edge FM. Irritatingly irresistible internet radio at roughedgefm.com.
There's so much going on in your community that even in this age of information, it's tough to keep up. This show will help. It's all about what's new, what's happening, and what's out there. So if you're ready, sit back and listen up, Santa Paula.
You're watching us?
Yeah, I'm watching us.
You can see us right here. Why do you need to watch us on the...
See how good you look.
I know.
Yeah.
So, John, you're talking a little soft. Either that or...
I can't hear myself very well.
Okay. Go ahead.
Is that better?
A little bit.
Yeah, still a little.
Yeah, it seems softer today.
Yeah, maybe I'm just...
You're tired.
Yeah, I am tired. So, yeah.
All right. That's all right. They'll hear me.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all that's important. Anyways, we have a very special guest.
Yes, I am excited about this guest.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you think if I really boost his ego, promote him up, and all that good stuff, that he might make some furniture for me for free?
Maybe.
No, I
he
doubt
loves he loves this ego stroked. So there you go.
All right. So we're gonna bring to the stage Michael Adams. So with Santa Paula Craftsman, and it's MAN because he is the craftsman.
Yep, he's the man.
Yes.
There's only one.
There's only one. And not to mention, so get this. If I asked you what you thought his second job might be, where would you go?
You would never guess.
It'd probably be like maybe he sells furniture, or he
used car salesman.
Yeah, something like yeah.
Exactly.
So so his second job is a private investigator.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that happen? Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
I was always making stuff, and I made very, very bad furniture with very crude tools after my wife and I were first married. So I did that on the weekends and tried to make stuff for the house.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Crude furniture.
And then in 94, I started a little research company, and that converted into investigative due diligence 97. And I did that full time for 20 something years. Got my PI license and worked primarily for banks and attorneys. So they were interesting background checks. I've probably done 10,000 of them in my lifetime, but we would also do the surveillance and the fraud investigations and elder abuse. And my furniture making continued to become more refined and sophisticated, and I started to do commissions. Mm-hmm. And 6 years ago, this business I had morphed in with another company and had grown 30-fold in 5 years, and employees in 3 states and business trips to New York. And my wife says, you need to stop doing this. It's killing you. And my doctor says, you need to stop doing this. It's killing you. And my therapist says, you really need to stop doing this. I'm serious. It's physically and mentally killing you. So circumstances outside of my control, I left the company and literally started with nothing at 56 years old. And I had always thought, if I'm going to be a furniture maker like I really want to do, I'm going to be homeless, because who's going to buy furniture? So we bought a little handyman company and fixed stuff and worked on houses and did trash haul outs. A year earlier, I was giving a pitch to Goldman Sachs, and now I'm in overalls cleaning out somebody's garage. But it was very liberating to get away from that, going from 500 emails a day to 2.
Yeah.
And it saved my life in a good way. And one of the mantras I live with by is the greatest wealth is to be satisfied with little, and it's true.
Yeah. Yeah, there you think that money buys happiness, but man, you look at some of the people on the other side and you're going, yeah, they don't look too happy.
Show me a man with a lot of keys, and I'll show you a man with a lot of worries.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've known Mike for a long time. When you were doing your investigations, he was a pretty intense guy back then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now you look at him. I mean, totally different person for the better. Totally for the better.
Yeah, I've had a similar conversation but I always said I was going to die working. So,
I think we all are at some capacity.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad was the typical, he worked, and he retired, and then he just kind of slowed completely down. And a year later he died. And so I'm not going to slow down.
Yeah,
so
that was my dad too, and he's retired, and he didn't really do a whole lot, and it just went downhill.
Yeah.
So,
yep. So you're still actively doing the PI stuff?
Yeah, I do background checks for some of the local businesses. I really don't like dealing with New York and LA clients, especially attorneys. It can be very toxic work.
Yeah.
I've worked some elder abuse cases, which can be extremely depressing because the law can sometimes be on the opposing party's side. And I say no a lot now because I can, and I have that freedom. And that allows me to just do the work that I want to do. But on the other hand, I've had people say, I should I do this? Or I'm thinking of either going into business with this person or relationship. And in a very short amount of time with the resources that I have, and of course, 2 decades of experience, I've just recently said, you don't want to do this. This is not the person that you think this person is. Don't do it. And that's, it's rewarding.
Is that one of the biggest things you're getting with people when they talk about businesses, about asking about their partnerships or?
Yeah.
So,
or a business relationship.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just don't listen. I had a client in New York who he brought me this email and he says, I've got this great business deal with Muammar Gaddafi's daughter. And, we're going to make millions. And I looked at it and I says, are you kidding me? This guy was a hedge fund manager. And I says, you're joking. He says, no, it's the real thing. I said, it's not. And he said, it is. I said, it's not. He says, I've got a picture of her passport.
Yeah.
If you want to pay me to tell you not to do this, then I'll do it. And I did it. And I told him, you can't do this. And he just stopped talking to me. It was,
and he did it anyways.
A sophisticated person that, greed.
Well, that's the thing is, some people get their minds made up, and it's like no matter what you say to them, they don't really want the truth. They just want someone to reaffirm what their mind is already set to.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen, they justify it away. So nobody, the name James Lantine has never come up in any of your.
Well, I had him do an investigation on you before I started the show.
Oh,
just to make sure.
Well, that's good news then.
Because I don't want to align myself with some kind of suspect.
That's good news then.
Yeah, I guess you passed the test. Here we are.
Yeah,
a couple years later now. So
almost 100 shows in.
Yeah,
I know nothing.
So you have a very interesting concept. And you had talked to me about this when we had a mixer about wanting to do kind of like a documentary or from the birth of a tree to it coming to your table.
Yes.
Becoming a table. And so we were talking off air how a lot of people don't realize it's like, they use toilet paper, but they don't realize how it actually got to be, on that roll. Or ketchup or whatever it is. And so, when you think of furniture, I don't think anyone thinks of it actually being built it's just kind of like, there's the table. Let's buy it and bring it home.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, some of this table is it conceivable, or is it possible to manufacture furniture without human hands?
You mean totally by machine?
Yeah, like some of this, really quick table work that, or these particle board things that get put together that you have to screw together and stuff like that. Is that all just automated, or?
You would be fascinated by the size of some of these machines that create those IKEA type of frames.
No.
They can be 70 feet long, and you feed in, a piece of plywood, and it comes out the other end all cut up. But there's a process of loading and unloading the machines, and then setting them up in the next assembly line. So it's a mixture of the two.
Yeah.
But there has to be human intervention.
Okay.
But not necessarily the creativity of it, other than computer work trying to get it.
Yeah,
set
and
with that.
John brought up an interesting point. I try to make one of a kind pieces of furniture, unless it's a commission, in which case they're telling me what to make.
I know why your mic's not working.
It's not working? Why? Oh. What are you doing here? Ah, is that better? Now I can actually hear myself.
Yeah.
Where's our engineer here? He should be catching that early.
He was sleeping. Your mic was turned so that the pickup was on the left and right side instead of the front and the back.
That's why I wasn't talking loud.
Yeah.
Okay. Better?
I did that on purpose before you came because
I know.
I wanted to hear Michael talk.
He wanted to show his expertise.
We can't get through a show without everything being perfect, can we?
No, not always, but
anyway, sorry, Mike.
So yours obviously is purely 100% by hand, and like you said, it's mostly original pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So do you is it all strictly by commission, or do you build stuff where you put it out for sale or anything like that, or is it purely somebody coming to you and saying, hey, we want this piece of furniture?
They email me, or they come in the shop and they show me a picture, and if it's something I don't want to do or outside of my expertise, I just say no. But if it's in my bailiwick, then I'll send them a measure drawing and an estimate, and then they can choose yes or no. I do make furniture when I have time. Saturdays are kind of my make art day, that I make what I want to make. If I get an interesting piece of wood or I have an idea. But also, most of my revenue comes from repairs and restoration, because nobody fixes stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Someone will bring in a rocking chair with a broken rocker. Who's going to fix that?
Right.
But if you can make furniture, you can fix furniture. It's fairly lucrative. I mean, I can make a living at it, but I have to run it like a business. It's not work to me. It's enjoyable, but there's costs involved. And if you don't understand cash management, I don't care how good a furniture maker you are, you're going to have a difficult time doing it.
Because I think people associate it with being a hobby, right? That's how they look at it.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's actually
it's a business.
Yeah.
Now, which business is kind of like your priority?
At this stage of my life, the furniture making is what I do.
Okay.
I'm not at a point where I can just take a year off and go on sabbatical. So I've got to keep the wheels greased, and I understand that there could be issues. My shop could burn down, or I could cut off a hand in a machine. And I understand that I have a vulnerable occupation. So the PI work was a huge investment, and I can always use it as a fallback or a plan B. And it's nice to be able to serve members of my community with a skill that they might not necessarily have.
Nice.
Yeah. If you can explain, what's the concept of how you start a piece? Like, you're just being inspired. Where do you get the wood? How do you source all that stuff?
Sometimes it'll be I'll give you an example. On one side of the spectrum, a family at Point Doom lost their house in the Woolsey fire. They built this house 25 years ago, and they had planted a sycamore tree on the property when they built it. House burned down, Woolsey fire. The tree was destroyed, but they kept the trunk, and they called me and said, we want a table out of this log. So I literally went out with my truck and dragged a chain around this log and hauled it into my truck, and we ended up delivering the dining room table, a mantle, you know.
Oh, wow.
And so now this tree that they planted when they built the house is in the new house. It was a very emotional moment. I mean, there were tears on both sides. So it had profound meaning to them. But the amount of work, you've got to take it, you've got to dry it, you've got to mill it, and then you've got to dry it some more, and then you cut it into dimensional lumber, and then you got to fabricate your plans.
So when you say you got to dry it,
Wood starts out at up to 40% moisture. And if you cut down an oak tree and you leave it as a log, it's going to take 5 or 6 years to dry.
wow.
If you slice it up, it's still going to take probably 2 years an inch. So a 2-inch slab is going to take 2 to 4 years. Then you can put it in a kiln, which it applies heat and humidity, moisture, and it balances it. It can dry in about 2 months. I have a vacuum kiln that can dry it in 2 weeks,
Oh, wow.
but it still has to sit for 6 or 8 months and get that flash off.
Now, is it better to allow it to dry naturally, or is there really no effect one way or the other?
If you're having a tree cut down and you think you want something done with it, cut it down into a log at least 10 feet long and keep it off the ground. Just put a couple of branches underneath it, but keep it off the ground, because once it sits in the ground, it'll rot.
Okay.
But yeah, let it sit there. And if you're not sure what you're going to do with it, let it sit for 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 years. It's only going to get better. But the California live oak that we have, the sycamore trees that we have, the grain is unbelievable. It's very unique. But you know, part of the California live oak, all gnarly, all that weight is on those branches. When you cut it up, you know, it wants to straighten and it becomes cupped and curved. You normally lose 40 to 40% of the wood from a log to a dimensional lumber. So to answer John's question, a lot of the furniture I make, my art furniture, is driven by the piece of wood. What can I make with this slab?
Okay.
It can only be so big.
Because I think people associate, you go to Home Depot, you just pick up some wood, you create something, there it is. That's not how you
And you
work.
can buy more.
Yeah, buy more. Yeah.
So the lumber we buy in Home Depot, what is the process as far as, is it literally taking them 4 to 5 years before that wood can actually be delivered to?
Well, that's the interesting concept. People think, you know, why are we throwing away all these trees that we're cutting down? You know, why aren't we saving it all? Wouldn't it be cheaper? The Home Depot deals with millions of things. They grow forests, you know, where they know 8 years from now, they're going to be able to cut something down. And they work with it's purely economies of scale.
Okay.
And their kilns are, you know, they can put a train load of wood in there and let it dry.
Okay.
But
so they're on the fast track when they
the fast track.
Yeah.
So the urban lumber yards do exist. There's a couple of them in LA. I visited their facilities, and they take local trees and they cut them down and they dry them and they mill them. But I asked him what is the cost of a 2x6, and he says I'd have to sell it for $70 for me to make a profit, because they don't have the economies of scale. Who's going to pay $70 for a 2x6? Well, I will if I'm going to make an $8,000 table. It's worth it to me.
right.
Yeah.
And some people, especially who are, I get a lot of clients in Ojai, they are attracted to local wood. It tells a story.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I can tell them, I'll tell you where this tree was cut down. I'll tell you how old it was. And there's a certain cachet to that.
Did you have like when the Thomas Fire came about? Were you able to salvage a lot of the wood from there?
Yeah, I sold a fire scarred log and made a art piece out of it, which was purchased by John Bonney, one of my dear clients, and he saw the appreciation of it as art. And I have other slabs that have charred edges, but I'm also sensitive to the fact that this is not something to celebrate.
Right.
So some people want a memorialization and some don't. And to John's point, I've had pieces that are only interesting because they're fire scarred.
Yeah.
And if you can mix that too, it becomes, again, a one-of-a-kind piece. Nobody's going to walk in your house and say, I've got one of those.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause it might be sensitive for people that live in the area that were affected by it, like you're saying. And so, yeah, bring a piece of that for their remembrance and stuff. So, yeah.
So, so we have over 700 decks of playing cards. And one of the things that I wanted to do, because we do trade shows, and it's a pain in the butt to do that. So I actually came up with this design of building a 2 foot wide by maybe 6.5 feet tall. The shelves, playing cards are like 2.5 by 3.5 or something like that, or I forget the exact dimensions. But I wanted to do a plexiglass front to where there was like a door that you could put each of the decks on it for display. And then you unlock it, and then the whole panel swings open, and you have the backstock behind it.
Nice.
And when I think of that and listening to you, I just think it's like cha-ching.
It's a one-off.
Yeah, because we would probably need like 10 of these things to cover all the decks that we have.
I had a client that has a rock store to sell rocks and charms up in Ojai in Pebbles and things. And she wanted a rotating pie-shaped shelf, like 3 of them stacked on top of each other, and she wanted them to turn. And you figure a pie shape so everything's at an angle. Right. Everything, because they were octagonal shaped. Yeah. And this was before I was a professional. And it was the same thing. It was like, this is really cool. Now I have to make it. And I told her, if you want 2 of these, let me know now. And I made it, and it was almost $3,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she says, that's fantastic. I want another one. And I said, well, it's $40,000 because I don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a career where you can kind of command your money, your fee.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's quality work. I mean, and then you talk about the labor it takes to put that together and stuff and do all that. And so, I mean, I'm really proud of what Mike's been doing in the community and stuff. So, and all switching careers like that at that age. I mean, I switched careers too.
Yeah, you and I not too far from each other.
Yeah.
I think we both took a better role.
It both helped us because my role was what I was doing. I was out of doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But no, I mean, what he's done for the community has been great. He's got a great business. And where is your business located?
I was just going to ask that, John.
On Highway 50, just below Mupu School, and on the Santa Paula side of the slide. I've had tremendous support from the community. I've had people here really give me, be a mentor and give me the space, heck, that I'm renting now. I mean, all these clients coming up from LA, I'm out of the city into my own space, but the chamber and the other residents have been really keen on promoting my work, and I could not have done it without them.
Yeah. So you have a warehouse space where you're able to do. It's
an old aircraft hangar.
Really?
Yeah, from the 1940s.
Wow,
it's such a cool place when you walk in there. Yeah,
I'll have to go check it out.
Yeah.
All metal. It looks very much out of place. All metal's fire resistant. I think that's the only reason it's still standing.
Yeah.
So you had this concept, I think I alluded to it, where you wanted to kind of do a documentary type thing on how a tree, where it all starts, and how it ends up in your dining room as a kitchen table.
Yes.
So what kind of inspired that?
I had a potential client call me they lived up on Sulphur Mountain Road. And he had these trees that he wanted to save because they were just laying in the dirt, but they had to be moved. But they're huge. I mean, they're thousands and thousands of pounds. And I remember going up there, and we're in this little valley, and it's magical. you're surrounded by these trees and you can't really see anything other than this little valley that you're in and these trees laying there. And nobody knows what it takes to get that tree to a beautiful table. I mean, there's all these steps: choosing the tree, moving it from where it's at. All trees are in a forest. How does it get to the mill? How much of the tree is wasted? How does the mill know where to cut? How much can you get out of it? How long does it take to dry? What happens when you dry it? There's all these different steps, and starting at the sawyer, deciding which tree to cut and whatnot. Some of the stuff I don't even know. But there's a huge amount of steps, and people call me frequently and say, "Hey, I've got a tree. Do you want it? It's free." Well, it's not free.
Yeah.
By the time I get it as a sliced up slabs dried, it's $1,500, and I have to sit on that money for potentially 3-4 years
Right.
before I can reinvest it into a furniture piece. And people who bring me chunks of trees, I have to explain to them the process, why it's costing so much, because it's time.
Right. Yeah. And you think about, you go to Home Depot and you buy a piece of plywood or whatever it might be, and you look at the $60 price tag and you go, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy." Everything, it's because you don't know what's behind it.
I think a $5 2x4 is cheap as hell, because I know what it takes to get a 2x4.
Right.
I complain about it because I'm American, but,
Exactly.
but it is remarkably economical.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely interested in pursuing that with you, because I think it'd be fascinating
I think that'd be
to
great
document
to
that.
do. Yeah.
So
I'd definitely like to help assist with that too. Even if I just hold the light,
The
or
boom
something,
mic.
boom light or something.
Or a chainsaw. You'd look great
Chainsaw.
with a chainsaw.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh gosh,
Yeah.
no.
There's some great documentaries that are being filmed about just people doing specific things. I think it'd be great to showcase what you do. How you do that.
And also check out, it's important that people value these urban lumber mills, and there's a couple of them in LA, and they're doing a good thing. It's good juju. We're getting these resources that could be reused, and instead they're sending them to the landfill. And we've lost sight of a society as being able to use things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I could see putting up several GoPros around your shop as you build a table, and then time lapse it and just see it.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of tree stumps by my house
Mm-hmm.
that are on Cemetery Road.
They're beautiful.
I don't know what they're going to do with them.
The stumps.
The stumps.
So you really use that because your stumps are filled with rocks and gravel along with the wood.
Inside of the wood.
Yeah, and sand and dirt, and you can't mill that. People have asked me that.
Yeah.
It'd be beautiful wood, but it would be so chock full of things that would damage your equipment.
Great firewood, though, right?
Great firewood.
Yeah.
That or you
I've been
could
tempted.
When we go camping, I always have a stash of scrap wood. I'm burning probably $800 or $900 worth of hardwood scraps and throwing away.
I'll tell you one thing. Whenever I go camping, Mike's got the best wood in town. He does.
Oh yeah.
For fires like that. Because I look at some of the stuff, I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is awesome. It's gorgeous. And we're flicking in the fire. It's like, oh my God. So, but yeah, any of some of your scrap wood that you give us and stuff, it's beautiful. Like, wow, it's just crazy.
You could always take a stump like that and make it as a table base.
I could.
Yeah.
So
I could.
It'd weigh what, 500 pounds?
Yeah. So I do have a question, Mike. You've done some public art stuff.
Yeah.
Where can somebody find some of your work?
Well, commercially, there's Bell Ringer Brewery. There's a whole set of redwood tables and benches that I made for that particular client.
Where are they located?
They're located on Main Street, the old Anacapa Brewery.
Oh, okay. All right.
I've
Did you make a piece for the hospital?
I made a huge hardwood maple base for the new medical center
Community Memorial.
Yeah. Someone had a significantly large ceramic piece and they wanted a base for it, but the original owner the original artist had fallen by the wayside. They wanted it done in 3 weeks, and yeah, that will sit for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, and Mike's not the only one creative in the family. I mean, your wife does some incredible stuff.
My
as
wife
well.
is the artist. Yeah, she paints.
That's the way my wife is.
Yeah.
It seems like the wives are the smart ones in this group here.
Yes, they are.
They're the ones that,
and yet they still marry us.
I know,
Yeah.
exactly. Well, they have one fault.
They
So,
come up. They come up with all the creative stuff, and then they say, "Here, do this."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
she's my sounding board. How does this look? She's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but she's got.
I
some
do that
great
when we
art.
do like websites and stuff like that. I'll put something together and I'll be like, "Hey, look at this," and she'll look at it and she'll go, "Change this, move that. Don't use that color. That color's awful. Put the."
Married men live longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not happier, but we live longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, John, we got about 30 seconds left. So, Michael, anything you want to add to the conversation?
If you're in a job that you really hate, there are better things in life than money, and I can tell you that till you're blue in the face. But you've experienced it. It is one of the most liberating things. But you've got to have your spouse on board. You really do, and that's the only way that I've been able to do that. A shout out to my wife.
Yeah,
I could not have done this without her.
Yeah,
Nice.
She's fantastic. She's a sweet lady. So, and where can we find you on social media, or how do they get a hold of you?
Well, there's only one Santa Paula Craftsman, so put it in your browser with a hashtag or an @ or anything, and I'll come up for Instagram, Facebook, and a website, santapaulacraftsman.com.
Nice.
Yeah, and a fantastic chamber member too. You can find him on our chamber website as well.
Shout out to the chamber.
Yep.
There you go. All right, John, you got 30 seconds to tell us everything
30
that's going on.
seconds. Chamber Awards next Thursday, a week from Thursday, the April 25th. We'll be honoring our Citizen of the Year, Businesses of the Year, and so on. So go to the chamber website, santapaulachamber.com, to buy your tickets. Tickets are $75. It includes dinner. We have 8 local businesses that are providing the dinner during our happy hour and our mixer before the program. So if you want to try numerous restaurants all in one location, buy your tickets at the chamber website. So yeah, it'll be a fun event. And we get the mayor who will be giving her State of the City address.
Yeah, we have to talk to the mayor because we have 2 more episodes to 100.
Yeah.
So
yeah, she's back from her trip with her business. So yeah, we'll have to get her on board.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks,
It was
Mike.
a pleasure.
I said, thanks, Mike.
So much fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much fun.
It was a
Thanks for having us
pleasure,
up,
and
Don.
I look forward to maybe working with you on this
Fantastic.
project. So, John, as always, it's you and me.
Get her
Yep.
done.
We'll be back again next week.
We will.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for listening, and stay safe out there.
This has been a Rough Edge Studios production.